Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are, no matter what time of day it is. I want to thank you for choosing today's free training as part of your continuing education lineup. Today's free training is provided through the Missouri Professional Training Partnership. You can learn all about the partnership at moapco.org/training. And you can see everything that we've got for continuing education recorded training at our training catalog, mopartnership.glide.page. Speaking of our training catalog, that's where you'll need to sign in to today's session. So when you get to the page up on the top right, you will see an option to sign in or sign up. If you've not already created an account, please do so using the sign up field. You will be prompted to answer several questions, and that is what you'll use to actually that's what we use to pull information on your certificates. If you want to know about the profile creation, you can watch this May 2024 update that is on the main screen. If not, go ahead and click on sign in, put your email address in that you've already created a profile with, and it should sign you up. Okay, so now that we're signed in, you will go to sessions, find your session that you are looking for, that you want to sign into, and then after you watch the video, you will click this affidavit of training. Make sure that all the information over on the right side is correct, click I attest, and then click submit. And then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of each week, you should receive a copy of your certificate. Thank you for choosing the Missouri Professional Training Partnership.
Okay. Hi, my name is Michelle Hatton, and I'm the Director of Operations at Crawford County 911. Started there as dispatcher 16 years ago. And I will tell you right off, I am not a professional trainer, instructor, any of that. I just have sat through all of the years of the new people coming in as we're onboarding our new employees and those of us who have been around a while, and kind of thought that the differences in the generations, the ages, the mixture that we have in the comm center was kind of interesting. So I just started doing a little research on it and trying to pay attention to the people as they came in and out. And I've never done this without being behind a pedestal thingy, so bear with me. So while we were looking through, when I was trying to study on some of these things, there were a lot of things that I hadn't really considered initially. So some of it is my perspective, but a lot of it is things I just kind of like to share. Maybe if you haven't thought about it as being an issue in your center before, might make you just kind of take note of some of the different things. So the definition of the generational gap is not just the difference in age between older people and younger people, but it's defined as the wall that separates the philosophies of different generations. Each generation is formed from the ideas and the events that have occurred in their life. That's kind of how we all are made in one way or another. And I'll hear a lot of people saying, well, we just grew up differently, or that's, I didn't grow up that way. So right now, for the first time since World War II, we have 5 different generations in the workforce at this time. So just kind of a show of hands, we have the silent generation, which is 1928 to 1945. Do we have any of those in here? Baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. And a couple. Gen X, 1965 to 1980. Yes, I fall under that one as well. Gen Y are the millennials, 1981 to 1996. Got some of those. Gen Z, which is 1997 to 2012. Yeah. Okay. So we definitely have a mixture in this class, and there's just a mixture of them everywhere. So kind of each one of us probably works with another generation other than what we actually came from. So does anybody have any preconceived notions about any of the generations? Also, there is absolutely no way to talk about this without feelings. These aren't my personal feelings on every generation, but it's the stereotypical, some of the things are just the stereotypes that you get with each different generation kind of as they go. So kind of to talk about some of the different ones. So first off, the silent generation, we don't have any in here currently, but 1928 to 1945. These generations were pretty much built on self-sacrifice, respect for authority. Work was its own reward. A lot of people I know with grandparents and different things back over the time, that's something that was, you go to work and that's your reward. Just, you got to do it today. But these are the same people that lived through the Great Depression. They had a infinite amount, what feels like, of discipline. I couldn't imagine having lived through the days of the Great Depression. But they did it, and they had a very traditional type family. It was mom, dad, kids. That was just the way that it was then. The next generation that we had were the baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. And also one thing just to throw in here, you'll notice 1946 to 1964, the people born in that time is classified as the baby boomers, but there's such a huge age range in there that if you were born in 1947, some of these things weren't formative to you because you were a baby. Some of your formative years, they come in as you get over to being a toddler, into teenage, and you've kind of been out in the world experiencing some of these things. But the baby boomers, 1946 to 1964, they coined the term workaholic. They appreciated competition, and now in the workforce, they're thinking about retirement. There was a tremendous amount of civil unrest back at that time, the Vietnam War. They equated authority with experience. If you've been around a long time, you are the authority. That was how they were brought up. These are the same people that lived through the sexual revolution. So thinking that they were all hardcore and they worked all the time, they also had all of the other stuff as well. There was about 76 million of them born. And just a note, I put my daddy in there. That's his Vietnam picture. I'm always very proud of that. Yeah. Yes, they all sent the same ones back home. Pretty rolling something with a gun. So Gen X, 1965 to 1980. This is kind of coined the lost generation. It's the generation I'm in. Several of you in there. This was also the smallest generation. It's kind of stuck between the baby boomers and the millennials. But there were more parents divorced in this generation than any other. And that starts with the different household, the family type. Again, none of these are definite. Everybody has different experiences and went through different times, but that's where you started a lot more of mom worked. You know, if dad wasn't in the home, one of them worked, the kids were coming home after school, there wasn't anyone there. You know, they were kind of raising each other. But they also wanted, and were the first to start asking for a work-life balance. They wanted to work hard, but they also wanted their families. They wanted to spend the time with their families and have an off time. Gen X is sometimes known to be cynical about things. I know. We're not as apt to change as we probably should be, but that is that. Also, the AIDS epidemic. I mean, we were brought up in that when, you know, back in the day where you wouldn't shake a hand. I remember that being a time. And as we know, as the years have gone by, times have changed. But there was MTV, and it was back when music was music. It was a whole thing. There wasn't the 16 and pregnant and all of it was everybody was listening to music, and it was good music, good music. Abortion was legalized, and also there were about 46 million born in this time, which leads into the next generation. It's Gen Y or the millennials, 1981 to 1986, got lots of them in there too. But this is something, technology was always in the home. We didn't have that. I was out of high school before the internet was coming along, or it was just starting, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I do know that we had an old Dell computer that cost a ton of money, and our biggest thing was downloading Napster, getting all of the viruses if we wanted music. So that's a thing. Gen Y, not a lot of that. They're often known to be pragmatic, very determined, and they are also the most represented in the workforce at this time. It's showing that 1 in 3 people in the workforce is actually a millennial. So it's just something to note. September 11th. I put that in there because it defined a lot of what the generation thinks about the world, and how things are happening. As far as when that occurred, they were growing up into being their own people. I remember when September 11th happened, my little one was in kindergarten. So I was at the age, he was at the age where he wasn't really realizing what was going on, but I, as a Gen X, it was pretty formative for me. The internet diversity, Gen Y, millennials more into some diversity, and there was about 80 million born during that time. So lots of people born during that time. Gen Z, this is the newest, actually, as far as new. They're about 10 years into the workforce, mostly at this time, and we do have a couple of you in here, but they are some of our youngest workers. The Me Too movement says soon to be joining, but like I said, there's about 10 years in. Smartphones, always had a phone in their hand, have always instant information, instant feedback. They never had a question about anything that they couldn't find at the tip of their fingers. Also, instant gratification on things. If they wanted to talk to someone or send a letter or something like that, you didn't have to wait until, it wasn't peak phone time and your parents didn't let you use the phone and you had to wait and everybody was in line, more kids than there was phones in the house. It's a whole different day. They can always contact anybody, say whatever they want. Marriage equality came in with this generation. Apparent climate issues are a big thing. I did not know that, honestly, when researching for this kind of thing. I kind of thought that we had dealt with that back when we used less Aquanet, because that was bad for the ozone, so we needed to tame our hair down a little bit more. Note, Aquanet not so popular, but there is a ton of climate issues, and apparently the world is burning down. I did not know that. It's a shame. If we want to fix it, that's great. But there were 68 million of them born in that time. So baby boomers, this is just kind of a general, there's about 25% in the workforce, 33 Gen X, 35 on the millennials, and about 5% of Gen Z. From the time this was taken, I'm sure it's probably a little bit more than that. However, that's what we have. Let's see. So all of those generations doing different things. Can we think of a few things that we all want, that every generation wants that is the same? We all want balance. Every generation wants fair compensation. They want to be challenged. They want to go to work and do something different, even though the phone calls maybe they're the same every day, maybe the same people. They're always having a different, similar issue. So we do want to be challenged. People want to be recognized, no matter what generation. If you're a baby boomer, you're a Gen Z, you want to be recognized for the work that you do. Support is a huge thing. It used to be in the workforce, a lot of times there wasn't a ton of support, but that's something that we've actively been working to try to change so that it is there. Flexibility, it's another thing. For example, I know when I started 16 years ago, it was, this is the shift you get because this is the shift you get. This is what we have, and that's all that it is. And I know that there's a wide variety of sizes of comm centers here, big, small, and everything in between. But I will tell you, one of the things that we've noticed to be able to try to keep employees, keep key employees, good employees, is to try to be flexible with things. We have a lot of custody issues, childcare issues. Childcare is expensive. There are people that it wouldn't pay to come in by the time they do their childcare. So it is something, we can't guarantee it, and we always let people know that ahead of time when they're coming in, but we do our best. And a lot of that depends on your coworker, teammate family. You know, we've got some that don't have kids, maybe don't have a lot going on outside. And when I say, hey, so-and-so, you know, having sitter issues, can we try to switch them up? They're always good to help. So it matters what you do for each other, because that's going to come back around in another way. And I think that we all want to do work that matters, everybody. Okay, so this is a quote that I think if you got online, you could see something similar to it pretty much anywhere. But it says, the children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. Children are now tyrants, not the servants of their households. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble up dainties at the table, cross their legs, and tyrannize their teachers. That was Socrates. The fact of the new generations, them kids, them new kids, them youngins, this is not a new concept. This has come around from well before. At one point, we, as Gen Xers, we were the new ones who were disrespectful, in consideration to our parents, who most of us were raised by boomers. And so they had a whole different mindset. I will tell you, I enjoy these as much as the next person. The memes, there are many, many evenings that I find myself scrolling down the rabbit hole on TikTok with the difference in Gen X and millennials and boomers and all of those kind of things. And they are funny, but they're kind of part of the opinion of a lot of people, and they're cute to joke about, but they're not always true. I mean, it's kind of like anything else that you hear about. This one actually was picked out by one of my coworkers. It says, if the apocalypse happened, I would just pass away. Why do people in movies always have so much will to live? Like, I don't know what that says, but they were a young one. I find it funny. It's probably not, but I find it. I think just in dispatch in general, we have sometimes a darker sense of humor than a lot of people do, but you have to have that to make it through the day, because, you know, life. I got my clicker. Oh. Okay, so mental health. This is something, this was something that we all could have used. I can guarantee that my parents, as boomers, could have utilized some of the mental health. I currently utilize the mental health. Some days it just doesn't seem like enough. I know a lot of my coworkers do as well. But this generation, the millennials actually that are coming in, they are one of the first generations that said, you know what, mental health is important. We can't continue on passing down some of the habits that we've gotten from our parents. We don't want to do that to our kids. And so we're at the point where we have a newer generation who has had a lot of different parenting techniques, which is not what we're accustomed to. So I just think this is really important. Prior generations were taught to repress instead of express, but for newer generations, it is the other way around. This has caused a perpetual rift with the older generations who can see this as a sign of weakness, mainly because they were taught that vulnerability is a weakness and not a strength. There is a fundamental difference in the way these generations express their problems. The younger generations may have the same feelings about something and are clear about expressing their feelings, and some older generations may have the same feelings but would not be comfortable expressing that at all. With the focus on mental health, people are facing issues and working on themselves, as well as their reactions to other people's behaviors. There is an openness that is allowing all generations to be able to share and learn from each other. This is something that I know I personally have had to work a lot on. Growing up, mental health was nothing that we dealt with. We had the typical family. I didn't start dispatching until I was 36, so I waited a pretty long time in life. And the only reason that I started that is because my youngest son had passed away when he was 3 months old, and I was in EMS prior. And I thought, you know what, dispatch would be a great way to completely detach myself, but still be helping people, so I wouldn't have to see it. And then I got into dispatch and found that is not the case. We are bonded mentally with the people that we talk to every day. And therefore, you see a lot of people in the comm centers who came into this job and then after dealing with things day after day after day, realized that they also brought a lot in. So I sometimes think it could be a great opportunity for us to help some of the younger people. We are hiring in younger and younger nowadays. I know a lot of people talking about going to the schools, and that's something that we've started doing. And if they don't have things from their childhood, which I think everyone has, maybe this is a way that we could reach them in expressing some of their things before it culminates to be a problem that they can't deal with, or unfortunately make a permanent type of decision for something that could be worked through. So I feel like it's super important. The generational divide is often studied. It is built into the heart of the American culture. There are difficulties in its study because in every area of the world, they have a different way of designating their generations. We have been so encouraged to stereotype these generations that it may be a detriment to all of us. Could the great generational divide be a self-fulfilling prophecy? I mean, if you hear something about yourself or a certain age group of people so many times, is it something that you could just expect? Like you go in thinking at it, you're not giving them an open, you're not giving them an open thought, giving them a chance to prove themselves, because they're not all the same way. Okay, so what are some different ways that we could overcome stereotypes in the comm center? I think communication is a huge way to overcome stereotypes. This is something that I had actually heard just as recently as yesterday, that up to 41% of us are actually working, or our manager is someone younger than we are. And that was something that years ago was something that was pretty much unheard of, because they stuck with it. If you've been around a while, you're in charge, you're the boss. And so now there are lots of people that find themselves in a different role, where there's someone in their 20s, early 30s coming in, and there are those of us who are, 50 and been there for a while. And the difference that it would make for a new manager, a new director, a new supervisor to come in and sit down with that person that's been on the console, 15, 20 years, and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I came into this position, but I cannot wait to work with you. You have got so many valuable skills and experiences. And I think that that's an opportunity that oftentimes is missed, because you never want that person walking in there and being like, well, I got this job, I have no idea how, but here I am to change things up and make the rules. And so I think just a good communication program with each other, just talking things out. Mentoring is a really good thing. I always like it when we have a newer employee, a younger one, working with somebody that's been around a while. I think the things that you can teach them are not things in the book. Anybody can look at a policy manual. Anybody can look at the standard operation procedure. Anybody can read that book. But I think that the tools that you get for having an experienced dispatcher with someone relatively new is invaluable. A lot of the things we have rules, but no call ever goes exactly according to plan. And so I think that's a great way of even if it's an accident, I found it kind of a happy accident a couple times. We've done the schedule and I'm like, oh, they're not gonna like that. But then it works out and ended up being some of our best bonded groups. So that makes me happy. Expectations, clear expectations. I've heard a lot of people say that the younger generations, they need, we're gonna get down to that, feedback, but a lot of feedback. And some of them do, but I also think it depends on the person. You have to make your expectations clear in what you're needing from them. Social events, and I know this is gonna vary upon centers, all different sizes. We tried really hard to do social events. It makes me kind of happy. I mean, anything different from a float trip. I think one year we dressed up as like witches around Halloween and went and had a photo shoot. So just simple things that not everybody is gonna participate in. But even when it comes something as silly as like locker decorating, I know that some of those guys are not going to decorate lockers, but it makes me happy when I come in and see their locker decorated, because I know somebody else is like, Michelle is gonna be so happy with this. And so that makes me happy, and it gets them into it, and they're forced to look at it every time they open their locker door. So I think that's cool. Inclusivity. Inclusivity. Everybody has a different moral compass, different personal beliefs, different opinions, different ideas. We don't have to agree with all of them, but we do need to make sure that the office is conducive to being all-inclusive. I don't, try not to get into the politics. That doesn't belong in the office, those kind of things. But you have to make sure that if you're doing something that is completely out of somebody's wheelhouse, extend the olive branch. Try to come up with things that they're going to, at least you think, maybe participate in or try to find something. There has to be some kind of inclusivity in the office, or it literally will divide the comm center completely. And that's always sad to see happen. Personality traits. Has anybody taken the personality quizzes, any of those tests? Okay. I remember years ago, Angie at a conference gave out personality traits, personality quizzes, and it was the most phenomenal thing. Like, I loved it. I found out exactly what I was. I found out how I could irritate some of the people that were not like me, and that's okay, but it gives you an idea of how to approach some of the others. Because some of them just are not having it at all, and that's okay too. Sense of purpose. Everybody wants a sense of purpose. We want a sense of purpose with the job that we do. I think we also want a sense of purpose with some of the people that we work with too. I mean, we counted up the other day, and we're actually, dispatchers are in the office, in the comm center, sometimes more than they are, a lot of the times more than they are at home with their family. Hopefully you didn't marry someone that you absolutely cannot stand. Some of us have done that. Won't be do-over in that. However, we do have to stay with each other. We do have to dispatch, we have to communicate, we have to get together. You don't have to agree all the time. Like you said earlier, there's good things, bad things we work through. Education. We have been recently, we just did the 40-hour basic course for everyone in the comm center. And have been trying to do more education. This has been a great out of my comfort zone opportunity for me, just to talk about something that I'm kind of excited about. I think it gives different people a different perspective. The feedback. Feedback is, some people want the feedback on their yearly evaluation, and then they don't want any feedback any other time. But that's not how we do things. We give feedback, a QA every month. If there's an issue, if something's really good, we share that. If something's really bad, we're gonna talk about that. Some people need feedback on almost every shift. They like that. That's how they learn. And so I have had to change up my way I do things, not just, I know that I'm gonna do QA for that one particular employee, way more than I'm gonna QA for some of the other ones. We have a basic that we do every month, but that's because that's how she learns. And if that's how she learns, I have to learn to try to maneuver how I plan to do things. Cross-training, people knowing other people's jobs. I like it that we have a TAC officer, but we also have assistant TACs that help out in the office, do all kinds of different things. We have supervisors that should be able to do pretty much everything, and if they can't, they're going to figure out how to make it happen. We all can contact and keep in touch with each other, which I think is a great thing. But what about this concept, which is kind of a novel concept? But what if we just met people where they are? How would it change your comm center if we just decided to meet people where they are? Meet them in the space that they are currently in, not the generation that they belong to. Meet with no preconceived notions of their actions or behaviors, but just meet them as the person they are. It often feels like conversations of generation gap between boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and others, that we have forgotten that people are just that. They're all people. Once we begin to meet people where they are, we begin to open a line of communication that all generations want and need. To get that communication, people must feel seen, heard, and valued. We cannot operate it with the mindset of we do it because that's how it's always been done. If we do that, we will lose out on one of the best opportunities for change and growth. This batch is full of type A personalities, which I think that we all know. Everybody knows all of the things, but it's also why we love the job. And we don't typically like change, which I think I've said that more than once up here today, and it's never a seamless transition. When we go to new equipment, new ideas, new people, the people that tell you it's going to be seamless are typically haven't dealt with a lot of changes because it's never seamless, although we may want it to be. Okay. In a world full of diversity and change, we must find common space. We must practice how to teach, and we must practice how to learn. Teaching and learning require no formal moment or training. We learn and teach every day. If we are looking for an example or something we admire about a person or how they do their job, we are often not looking at the supervisors or director sitting in the other office. We are looking at the person sitting across from us, the person on the other console. So no matter if the generational gap is a great divide or if it's a speed bump in the road at your communication center, I believe that it can be cured by a few things. It all begins with communication, humility, and a deeper curiosity about the strength and limitations of our team members and ourselves. It begins with acceptance that we are all fundamentally different people with equally valuable insights to offer. Meet people where they are and give them some grace.